The Watership Down Podcast is intended for listeners who are familiar with the plot. There will be spoilers. This episode is scripted by Newell Fisher and Joe Sutphin and is narrated, recorded and edited by Newell Fisher. Hello, and welcome to the Watership Down Podcast episode 228, which is being recorded outdoors in our garden on a lovely English summer evening after a day of rain, in which we'll be going through the second and last part of chapter 18 of the graphic novel, Nuthanger Farm. First though, some burrow keeping. After last week's episode went out, Joe Sutphin himself, the illustrator of the graphic novel, commented on the YouTube version with some very interesting information. Quote, "Great job as always, Newell. I thought this would be a good chapter to step in and share something. Many would not know this, but the amount of pages a graphic novel will be is typically spelled out in the contract. With Watership Down, we had a specific limited number of pages in which to adapt the entirety of Richard's gigantic novel. James did a fantastic job of winnowing it all down to a very respectable telling, but the first finished draft of this comic sadly does not include the first 9 pages of what is now chapter 18. We simply did not have the real estate needed, and thus Hazel's wreck mission to scout the farm was eliminated, and specific bits of dialogue were written into the raid in order to introduce the Sandalford rabbits to the hutch rabbits. It wasn't ideal at all, but we tried to make it work. Thankfully, during that round of edits, Roz and Juliet felt the loss of that portion of story and pushed to have us find a way to add it back in. So James and I set about writing the brief reconnaissance mission and then rewriting the dialogue in the existing farm raid pages to ensure that the hutch rabbits recognised Hazel from his previous visit. It was a very tough job to suddenly create all new pages in a book we had already been working on for several years and thought we might be finished with. But the truth is, it's a far better adaptation with the inclusion of the wreck mission. I'm grateful we were given the chance to correct and complete that plotline, and pages 161 to 169 were drawn something like 2.5 years after pages 170 to 183. Crazy how books can work." End quote. Thank you so much for that information, Joe. It also explains the other omissions in this retelling as well. This is all the more interesting as the point at which those later illustrations give way to the earlier ones is the exact point at which I've split this chapter. It just seemed the right place to do so. And of course, welcome to the Owsler, Joe Sutphin. Next, a reminder that the episode after we reach the end of part 2 of the story, which is due to be episode 232 at the moment, will be devoted to reactions to the graphic novel so far, as well as any other items of interest that come up. If you have something you would like to contribute, now is the time to begin thinking about what you would like to say. I am happy to receive contributions in the form of sound files or text that I can read out. The email is in the notes and is thewatershipdownpodcast, all one word, @outlook.com. Anyway, let's get back to the graphic novel, where the raid on Nuthanger Farm is about to begin. The graphic novel, Chapter 18, Nuthanger Farm, Part 2. Chapter 18 of the graphic novel has 23 pages and covers Chapter 24, Nuthanger Farm, and Chapter 25, The Raid, from the original novel. In this episode, we will be looking at the last 13 pages of this chapter, which portray the last 13 pages of Chapter 25 from the novel, meaning that this chapter tells this part of the story in the same number of pages as the original. Once again, it is night time. We see 4 rabbits running up Nuthanger Lane. Hazel says he will stay outside the farm as he promised Fiver he would. Promising to see him soon with does, Bigwig continues past a gate with Blackberry and Dandelion. We see the dog asleep, and a ginger black and white cat watching from beneath a barn. The cat that tried attacking Hazel and Pipkin was a tabby, so for the first time both the farm cats from the novel are portrayed. This cat is a calico and therefore female. 3 rabbits reach the building where the hutch rabbits are. They peer inside, and we see all 4 of the hutch rabbits. For the first time since the book's original publication, we see them all visually portrayed in a retelling of the story as described in the book. Laurel and Clover, at the wire of the hutch, have the black hair of Angoras, while Boxwood and Haystack, behind them, have the white fur with black ears and noses of Himalayans. One of the Angoras, probably Clover, asks if Hazel Ra has come back. Bigwig reassures her that he is not far away and sent them. Blackberry adds that they have come to let them out. He asks if they will join them, saying they will be welcome. There is a pause. Clover looks down at them, then answers yes. Bigwig says Blackberry will work out how to open the hutch. But then one of the hutch rabbits cries out to look behind them. The dialogue stops as we see a large frame of the calico cat entering the outbuilding. It has been stalking the three rabbits. The cat attacks and is met by Dandelion, who returns the attack. Then Bigwig counterattacks and puts it on its back. They both tear at the cat, which is badly scratched. The hutch rabbits look on amazed. Dandelion bites her ear, while Bigwig sinks his teeth into a hind leg. The cat, as Richard Adams says they are wont to do when faced with prey that fights back, turns tail and runs. I love cats, but he was absolutely right about this. There is no point trying to catch a meal that injures you. We humans might call this cowardice, but it is actually the pragmatism of being a predator, for that is the nature of cats. The hutch rabbits look on, unsure what to do now. But they have just seen fellow rabbits see off a cat, and Bigwig uses this to his advantage, saying they can look after themselves. He says their chief is in the lane, and is asked what a lane is, presumably by Laurel as in the book. We cut to Blackberry, sitting on the hutch, chewing at a leather strap. Once it is through, he tells the rabbits inside to push at the door, which immediately gives way and lands loudly on the floor next to Bigwig. We see the dog wake up. It begins to bark. If farm cats are pest control, farm dogs are intruder alarms, and this one is doing his job perfectly. With the dog continuing to bark, Bigwig says they have to go, now. But the hutch rabbits just look down at him blankly. Bigwig and Blackberry look up, wondering what to do. These rabbits clearly aren't used to orders. And then Blackberry's brain kicks in, and as he says what Bigwig meant was that eating grass is lovely at this time of night. They should try it. Two of the hutch rabbits say they would like to try that, and they all jump down. Bigwig leads them out into the farmyard. We see the calico cat watching as Bigwig tells them they had to move as it isn't safe. The dog is still barking, looking quite demonic now. And then we are back with Hazel as Bigwig reports he has only brought two with him. These are the Angora doe Clover and Himalayan buck Boxwood. The Angora buck Laurel and Himalayan doe Haystack have had to be left behind because of the dog, Clover reports. Bigwig adds that they went Tharn. At first Hazel seems annoyed, but quickly realises Bigwig has worked wonders. And if they had left at that point, they would still have had their first doe, Clover. But Hazel decides to take a risk and break his promise to Fiver. He tells Bigwig and Blackberry to get the two hutch rabbits back to Watership Down. It may take them most of the night. However, Dandelion is to come with him. Bigwig says this is foolish, but Hazel is already on his way, saying there is no time to spare. We see Laurel and Haystack cowering by a wall as the dog continues barking. Hazel and Dandelion arrive. Laurel says they are afraid of the dog, but Hazel reassures them there is only a small way to go. And then, suddenly, there is a blinding light. There is no warning of the arrival of the hoodoo as in the novel. It is just there. Is this realistic, given a rabbit's senses? It is probably another device to save page space, and it is visually dramatic to the degree that it is the blurred image for this episode, although the ghostly illumination of the cat's eyes and then theirs would have been very visually effective as well, but it would have needed an entire page rather than just one frame. For the first time, as in the novel, we read the spoken words of a human, as we see the face of the farmer as he gets out of his Land Rover Jeep. He gets out of the left side, which means in the UK that someone else is driving. His English is changed to almost standard British English, as he says Lucy's rabbits is out rather than are, but also uses the standard form when he says to whoever is with him to get them in rather than un. He also says to leave the lights on rather than the lights. And that light keeps holding the four rabbits Tharn. We see their eyes shining red as they stare at it. A human scoops up the buck Laurel, and then Hazel, in a Saving Private Ryan moment of coming back to his senses, squeezes his eyes shut and tells Dandelion and Haystack to do the same and run. We see them dash under the barn on Staddlestones. Then poor Laurel being held tightly by the human, who tells his companion to get him back to the hutch and grab a torch. Under the barn, Hazel says they can't stay there long. Dandelion adds they will have to leave Laurel behind. Haystack says she can't go back to the hutch, and then the torch illuminates them. Dandelion manages to see that the man has a gun. His speech bubble is jagged as he shouts this. Hazel immediately shouts back, or does the jagged speech bubble just signify a harsh, urgent voice? This breaks the spell of the light again, as he says that he is going to run where the humans can see him, so that Dandelion and Haystack can make a run for it. Dandelion tries to object, but he is gone, running between a human's feet and off, presumably down Nuthanger Lane. A human shouts to keep the light on him. We see Hazel bolting, fully lit by the torch. Over the page we see 3 frames. A man aiming a shotgun, a cigarette between his fingers. Bigwig and Blackberry looking up fearfully with the 2 rescued hutch rabbits in a field. The word bang fills the night sky in red graduating to yellow. The man lowers the shotgun. We see he has a thick moustache. He is the farmer, the same man we saw in chapter 17 with his daughter Lucy playing with her rabbits. The same man who just told his companion to get Laurel back in the hutch. There are rabbits who deserve life, and there are rabbits who deserve death. Got him, he says. He does not smile. Over the page we see the field again, and outlined against the night sky, as it begins to rain, where the sound of the gun appeared, we see a vast black rabbit, the tree line in front of it. Its eye glows red, and looks right at us. Send not to know for whom the gun fires. It fires for thee. Leaves rustle in the wind of night. A bare branch stands out against the sky, sharp and clear, just as Fiver said. Dawn begins to break as the wind and rain dies away. On Watership Down, Bluebell, with his one half ear, looks around and says they're back. An anxious Fiver asks if he means Hazel and Bigwig. No, it is Captain Holly and the others who went south with him. Bluebell, the former Owsler member, still gives him his title. We see 4 bedraggled rabbits. Bluebell recognises Strawberry and says he is ill from exhaustion, a strange turn of phrase echoing Adam's narration. Then he notices Buckthorn's injured face, and that they have no does. He asks what happened. Holly pauses, then says one word. Woundwort. Comparison with the book. In this telling of the story, Bigwig, Dandelion and Speedwell do not attack the second calico cat in the farmyard. We only see her watching the raiders, minus Speedwell, as they enter the outbuilding with the hutches. One of the Angoras, probably Clover, seems to ask if Hazel has come back, rather than Haystack the Himalayan. The fight with the calico cat happens in the outbuilding where the hutch is, and Dandelion has first contact, not Bigwig. Bigwig has a lot more to say to the hutch rabbits, especially after they get the additional motivation of seeing the cat seen off right in front of them, and even refers to Hazel as their chief, something he doesn't do in the novel until after the siege on Watership Down. The whole conversation about Hazel and Elaine happens while the hutch rabbits are still in the hutch here rather than after they get out. The freeing from the hutch is much simplified, with the push at the door from inside the hutch completing the process rather than being what allows Bigwig to get an initial purchase on the leather strap, and we only see Blackberry chewing it. The dog wakes up here while they are still in the hutch building and is woken by the hutch door falling, rather than the tabby cat passing it as it also stalks the rabbits. And Blackberry's suggestion of eating grass by night is what finally gets them down from the hutch rather than into the farmyard. We do not see Dandelion trying to urge the doe haystack to keep moving. Instead, the action jumps to Hazel, to whom Bigwig reports that she and Laurel have gone tharn at the barking of the dog. The lapine term is not used in the book. In the book, Bigwig keeps his opinion of Hazel going back for them to himself in order to preserve order. Here, he tells Hazel he is being foolish. Hazel and Dandelion deal with the two stragglers together here, rather than Hazel very much focusing on the doe haystack, who is the priority, telling Dandelion to deal with the buck Laurel. And then, as said before, the Crududu arrives suddenly. There is no slow reveal of the headlights, as in the book, where the slow illumination of the nearby cat's eyes, and then their own, reveals the approaching headlights. We actually see the buck Laurel being scooped up by a human who gets far closer to the wild rabbits than in the book. Here, there is no conversation in Hampshire accents between two humans, such as I attempted in episode 50. We only seem to hear one voice, rendered in almost standard British English. The humans produce the torch earlier than in the book as they search for the rabbits under the barn, and there is no suggestion from Dandelion of leaving Haystack behind. Hazel's dash to allow Dandelion and Haystack to escape happens from under the raised barn, not in Nuthanger Lane. We get no account of what happened to Hazel after the gunshot, and Holly's expedition from the south returns before Fiver receives the news about Hazel. Here, their return is portrayed with dialogue rather than just reported, allowing Holly to utter the word early that will come to hold so much fear for the rabbits of Watership Down. Next time, the grieving Fiver has a dream.